Welcome to the Metasports League Studios and episode number 2 of the DigiFan Podcast. We're pretty excited to have the full crew here. We've got Quirky, Waggs, Juju, and Peanut. Let's get your title up there. All right, boys. Why don't you take it away?
Thanks a lot, Doc. How you doing over there?
Doing pretty good. Hanging out in the dock station here.
You've elevated this whole thing to another level.
It's looking good.
You're actually making us look good. Wow, no, as good as we possibly could. So
it's no
Quirky,
longer a dock pit; it's a dock station, huh?
For sure.
Upgraded.
Love the J. Fabulous.
Thank you.
It's a
Yeah,
good look.
I as a lot of people know, I rock this way often, and have tried to become a Butte.
Yes, you have.
Days.
Well, isn't that
This is my guy, you know?
So,
I got the flow covered up a little bit.
Conversation
Yeah.
piece. Do people say, "Hey, what the hell is that?" Or
Yeah, actually, they do, especially when they see the fish flops and hockey socks that go with it sometimes.
oh, you're right on.
I didn't want to grace
right
the presence just yet because
Topic and conversation.
This guy's so good. You're right on. Right on.
yeah, we're just throwing it out there.
Oh, there we go. We have a hot take right there. Bringing out all the sound effects there.
The fish flops and hockey socks turn some heads. Peanut is not on the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
I think as far as the enjoyment.
Or the other side of the street when he's hanging out with you.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. But no, it's a good time. It's fun to be here with you guys. Enjoyed watching the episode last week, and I love what we got going here.
We missed having you, so welcome aboard. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Peanut, what's up, man? I hear you were in X jail this past week.
I was.
Do tell.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. For people who know me on X or Twitter, had a little bit of a timeout for 12 hours or so, and for someone like me who, I mean, Doc and Quirky know how much time I spend on that platform. I'm usually interacting, so 12 hours was a little bit too long for me to be away. But people came in to support. They reached out to X support, and we were able to get that case and situation escalated.
I mean, from the time I was made aware of it to the time that you were reactivated, I mean, I thought you were getting a little weepy there. I was like a little concerned. I was going to start calling in the extra help. Like, no, but that's good that you're back. So, but I think when something like that happens, you can also take a look at it and say, that platform matters to you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and that's where it's just general.
What did you do?
Honestly, it wasn't even that bad.
Were you going racist or what?
No.
Okay.
Well, apparently the comment that I put out was considered violent speech or hateful speech, and as the support team had looked at it, it was a false positive. So there's no flags or hinderings on my account now, which is good. But yeah, I know we're streaming right now on a couple of different platforms. I know we're on X, we're on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook at the same time. So if you guys are out there listening into us, we appreciate you.
The only guy that I know gets put in X jail, and they don't put anybody in jail anymore. And you're like the nicest dude I've ever met. It's like, how is that even possible? So when I saw that come across in our chat, I'm like saying, what? Like maybe there's like a dark side here I didn't know anything about.
The dark side of the moon. No,
that was incredible. It's like, wow.
No, I thought you could say almost or post almost anything on X nowadays.
Well,
Well, that was my point.
That is
you got to try really hard to get banned. So he got it down to an art. Julian, you've been working your ass off.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Yeah, it's been a lot. Minnesota Hockey TV, the boys' high school season just started up.
Shameless plug right there, baby.
Yeah, of course. And the girls are still doing their thing. We've been busy, on the technical side of things, doing play-by-play, and then I've got a dog and a girlfriend to take care of as well. So they take up almost all my personal time.
A lot of time and a lot of money too. I think you were saying last week.
Oh yeah, the girlfriend is a lot of money. The puppy too. I mean, the vet bills suck. And we got to take him back next week.
Is it a puppy?
It is a puppy. He's 3 months old, I think, really, right now.
How's that going for you?
I love him. He's a little shit.
Are you fatigued?
That's it. I love him, and he's a little shit. That's true. You got a puppy.
We signed up for this. Like, we knew it was, we kind of knew what we were walking into. But the whining, the biting, and then like the accidents. He's been shitting and
That's
peeing.
on you. Like at 3 months, if you don't have that under control,
He's been good. No, he's been better.
I mean, you suck. I mean, if you can't get that handled,
He's my first puppy.
are you using one of those little like diapers that people put on the ground?
No. Because
Have you seen those things?
I've seen those things. Yeah.
They weirdly work.
No, I don't like it because here's what I think.
I'm like, what do you got, a cat?
Trains,
What is
It
this?
trains your dog to think it's okay to pee inside. That's how I.
What's
how
the
I look
smell
at it.
like in there right now?
We have plenty of candles, so the candles, so it actually smells fresh.
So when we come over to your place and we're going to be throwing a couple back, we come in, we show up, and I look over at Quirky here and I go, what's that funky smell?
I think the funky smell would
It's
be
called
me. It's me
Dog.
actually.
Oh, okay.
Because I have an odor to myself.
You
say
do?
that. I do. I have an odor.
What do you mean?
It's not bad. It's just I just have a distinctive smell.
Well, you were like.
I'll be honest.
I'll be honest. I mean, like, thank
Wow,
God I
revealing.
can't smell a thing. You were borderline mute last week, and this week you are bringing out the dogs, man.
I'm ready to go.
Like, just
Let's go, Juju.
deprecating. I love it.
Literal dogs.
So good.
We're getting a little bit more chatter out of Juju this week. I love it right off the rip.
I've never smelled it.
So you never smell?
No, it's not like that musty thing. So
No,
we're okay.
I'm not saying I'm musty. I just
If you smelt it, you dealt it.
Can I suggest the crop duster for your balls from Manscaped?
Jeez, oh, God.
Can we say that?
You
Like-
can say whatever you want.
Okay, can I
Like-
suggest
Not
that?
for kids.
Just don't say what Peanut says because it'll get us banned from everything.
Well, no, but I mean, like, I said
Like
words that were
deodorant.
all legal.
ball deodorant is what you're talking
Right.
about, right? Yeah. It's not that. I just
Well,
have.
I think that might help.
I'll try using.
Oh,
it.
you're saying the body chem.
I think it's just
okay.
the body.
Yeah.
Guys, there's like, I mean, first, it's so interesting in the NFL when you get into the coaching carousel and, you know, everybody's talking about, it always seems like everybody wants to blame something for why it isn't working. So either it's the coach, and then now it's like been hyperly pointed toward quarterbacks. Okay. So where does culture and all of the other things come into play? And I think I'm thinking of the two teams in New York right now that are absolutely struggling with both. Like it's crazy to see.
You can say for how it is, dumpster fires.
Well, I mean, it's crazy though. Okay, dumpster fire, but you know, I heard someone say, I don't know what I was listening to, was a podcast of some sort, and she called in and she said, JETS, mess. That was good.
That's a good one.
But let's start first with Daniel Jones. And, you know, obviously Saquon Barkley, they needed to make a decision on that, and they did. And you see what he's doing in Philly. But is Daniel Jones a scapegoat?
Ooh, man, I think you came out firing, right? Like, I think this literally was reading this on the way in here, and you know, the statements between the team and him, it does seem like he's the scapegoat a bit.
Feels like it.
It does. It feels like it. And I mean, he says it in his comments about it already. He's saying, you know, yeah, I accept responsibility, whatever that means, but there's a whole team involved in this, right? Like, it's not just a quarterback. But I mean, to have 6 years there, 5 years, 6 years there, right?
Right. And 2 years
About
ago was a
5,
pretty
yeah.
darn good
Yeah.
season for him.
Yeah.
But I think for him to be able to come out and say that, I mean, he clearly wants to move on and like save face a bit. I don't know how he's going to though, coming from this, but yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. There's definitely way more to a team than just a quarterback. So to your point.
Well,
yeah.
I always feel quarterbacks get too much credit and they get too much of the blame. You know, it's a little bit something in between. And like you look at the Giants, do they even have a running game? Like, does it exist? I mean,
It hasn't been good.
it's tough. You look at the Jets. Boy, that firing really made sense, didn't it, Woody? I mean, he gets rid of the coach, who I thought was good. And now who's he consulting for the Minnesota fans? You see that, right, guys?
A little bit.
He's buddies with LaFleur, and he's
True.
been kind of a consultant with them in a couple capacities. So he's going to. I think he's a great coach, and they were 2-3 when he's gone. They've been just absolutely horrific since he left.
Yep.
Is that the quarterback's fault? Is the culture of that team the quarterback's fault? Now they're blaming Rodgers. I mean, is it? I don't think it is completely. So I think it's interesting when you look at the league. So you got guys like Vrabel.
Yep.
You've got the very sexy trend. Belichick. Don't want him to get a job. I don't want him to ever coach again.
Why? Belichick's awesome.
Never again.
Just because he's so good on the Monday night cast with Peyton.
Cue the. Let's hear it.
Is that
Let's
it?
hear it.
Is that the way? Is the
100%.
With Peyton.
100%.
There we go.
It's so good.
I read your
It's
mind.
so good. Like it's
good.
like I don't even. Is there even a traditional cast? I mean, he's so good. Like they don't even need. Boom. There it is. They don't even need to bring anybody else in. The knowledge bombs, the dryness. He handles those two guys beautifully. Like I don't want him to coach. I was thinking that last week, Quirky.
Yeah. He's good on it. He's
agree?
good on it. Yeah.
It's interesting.
I love
It's
it.
interesting though how much of a double sword it is with quarterbacks in the NFL. You have the relationship. You bring up Belichick, and you look at what Tom Brady had done, and arguably they're probably one of the best quarterback coach combos that the league has ever seen. And then on the other side of it, you're seeing what's happening with the Jets, and they obviously hope that they could rekindle some of that spark with Rodgers, and well, we saw where that went. Firing of a coach there, and they're trying to figure out what their next steps are and seeing if they can get the right pieces of the puzzle there too.
They have given Aaron Rodgers just about everything he's asked for along
Former
the way.
teammates,
Right, and guys that he's comfortable with and fits there. And I don't think he's been. I don't know the position well enough to really have an opinion. I mean, I could tell you about the hockey guys of whether they're really good or not good.
Yeah.
But from the eye test, fine. But I think there's more to all of this than just personnel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously personnel is a huge thing. Again, you look at some of the other quarterbacks that have come into the league. Earlier we were sidebarring about the intangibles that a lot of quarterbacks have. You think of Mahomes or Allen, where they had spent a lot of time. Mahomes, Texas Tech, and then Allen too. Where his college career had kind of went, and just to see again how they've come out of the gate. From college, you have the scouting, the combine. And there's a lot of elements that you can't see necessarily, but people grow and mature in the league. And I know that, down in Carolina, Bryce Young is still trying to figure that out, remarkable college quarterback. And, we've seen a number of other college quarterbacks too that just haven't been able to translate it to the pros. With Robert Griffin, I know was a key quarterback that I had kind of grown up watching. Johnny Manziel was another one that just couldn't quite figure it out. So, again, there's one aspect of the talent and the intangibles. There's also another element of culture and leadership that the quarterback brings, and obviously there's more pieces to it with the coaching staff, the head coach, and I think we've seen a great example of that with Dan Campbell in Detroit too this year.
Wow, the cerebral one.
This is the last minute of play.
Wow,
in the
we
period.
got 1 period to go. 1 minute to go on the period here. Thank you for that, Coach. Really interesting thing is when you see all these quarterbacks drafted, and I thought for this year it was going to be fascinating to really see who is going to be where and how. Was it going to be Daniels? Was it going to be Penix? Would he ever play?
Yep.
I was, whatever. And you go on and on and on, and some guys have really good first years.
Yep.
And then maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm. Like Bo Nix, maybe. He's kind of.
Will he be that guy?
Yeah.
Or is Sean Payton just that good with quarterbacks of that certain stature? Like, who knows? Will Drake May have an absolute incredible ceiling? Don't know. What's going to happen with JJ McCarthy looked really good on that one moment.
One shining moment.
That one pass. No. I mean, but he had some really good series there in the preseason. But does that pan out? It's really hard to guarantee. For first-round picks, you better be darn sure. Like, I think, honestly, I brought it up before we hopped on. If I'm the Giants, I'm really okay with that Neighbors pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I love that guy. And so they kind of fell into that by default because they couldn't get where they wanted to get the quarterback. So that's the interesting part about this. You can sit here and hammer this out all you want, but you never really know until you know. And that's really what it comes down to. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little NHL, and then we're going to roll it into. We're going to talk major, junior, and college hockey with Joe Delich from Minnesota Hockey. He's the executive director. Back in a moment. Look at this thing. I see optimal.
You're kind of hidden by the chair.
Okay, we're back.
Welcome
back.
Oh, sorry, that's you. Do you want to welcome us back officially?
Welcome back to the I'm not welcoming you back, but I'm welcoming the audience back to the DigiFan Podcast. This is episode number 2.
What was that little spot you were running there? Why don't you tell everybody what that's about?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit here. Let me grab my other headphones because we have 2 sets of headphones that have a delay on them. So here we go. That's the MetaBeauts NFT project from the Metasports League, and this studio is the Metasports League studio. And you'll see Quirky Quirk. He is wearing the MetaBeauts jersey, which we are giving away after we talk to Joe Delich. We're going to be giving away a MetaBeauts jersey, which also comes along with a free mint at Mint Day. And this is an NFT project. I think you've got 2 fellas up there that really know a lot about NFTs. Maybe you guys could jump in there.
The 2 fellas being Quirky and Peanut, right?
That's right.
Let's go, boys. Open it up.
Quirky Quirk. Dive in, baby.
Dive in. Yeah, well, obviously, Peanut and I have taken a deep dive into it, and it all kind of boils down to developing a fun community, right? I think that's what, it has had its moment, and people have their opinions on NFTs, but really, it's digital art in the end, and it's about building a community, and something that both Peanut and I have really discovered is a great way to rally community, rally support, rally like-minded people, even people with like different opinions and different views. And it's been a very fun experience for me to get involved in a number of different of these communities, these digital art NFT communities. And this is one that the boys here that they created and is developing into a hockey sports ecosystem that is going to be a wonderful thing for people to take part in.
Peanut, did you feel like, things kind of got quiet there in the NFT world, and did you feel like it was over? And can you kind of explain where you think things are? Because everybody was proclaiming it.
Yeah. Well, with a lot of the news that people do here, it's usually the larger folder. There's a macro perspective when it comes to the NFT world, and again, the general consensus, the general world only hears, again, maybe some of those collections or communities on the top, so to speak, if there's a certain valuation that, we're going to look at when it comes to some of these ecosystems. But for me, and I know Quirky Quirk can relate to, at least I never thought that it was dead. There's a lot of communities that maybe aren't at the same prestige or the same type of maybe hype that some of these other ecosystems have. So for us, and again, even just me personally, with the different people that I get to hang around and be with, for us, it comes down to a lot of these in-person events. It comes down to these, different, executable items that we've been able to have even within a couple of different communities that I'm in, with, beer lines coming out, with streetwear items continuing to be dropped, and continuing to have partnerships with, Web 2 brands or everyday brands that, people in this digital space may not know about. But when you can bring the right people together who really have the same conviction and passion for what they're doing, it creates a different type of synergy and a different type of excitement. So for me, again, I really don't think it ever died. I mean, yeah, maybe there's ebbs and flows like anything in the market, even when we're talking about sports or the stock market, whatever the case may be.
Housing.
Yeah, housing. Everything has ebbs and flows. Everything has trends. So for me, yeah, there's maybe times where sentiment's down, but I have continued to stay as plugged in as ever within this crypto and NFT space.
I'm curious. Like, to me, NFTs, I don't know too much about them, but maybe one of you two can answer this. But to me, it's just a picture. And I know you talked a little bit about building community with NFTs. For me, it's like, how do you build a community with just a picture of something?
Something two-dimensional, or so it appears.
Yeah. It's a loaded topic, and I think this could be a multi-week answer here. Hard to put out in just one short answer. I think when it comes down to it, the way that I like to put it is people like to know that they belong somewhere, that they're valued and appreciated, and that their voice is heard. And when you can collectively rally around these different visuals, these different NFTs, it becomes a branding point and an identity for a lot of people who don't want to show their face on social media or docs to a certain extent. And obviously people love art, they love visuals, and they love communities. And so when you can bring together a number of different elements together and people can have fun with different assets, digital assets that they own, you think about, some of the different ticket stubs or airline tickets that people have, not necessarily the the most equal concept of comparing apples to apples, but you have that digital ownership of saying, hey, I have a ticket, I sit on this particular seat on this flight to wherever I'm going, and there's similarities with some of the concepts when it comes to NFTs and crypto, saying, hey, I own this type of asset. It sits in my wallet, and I can show you that I own it, or that this belongs to me.
Yeah. It's a door opener, right? I think that it's a commonality that I've found. Just if you have that one little thing in common with somebody, it just automatically opens up a door that maybe wasn't there before, a network of sorts, right? And not that it's necessary, not that it's 100% needed, but it certainly is an interesting way to just sort of open that door just a little bit, to know you've got some commonality with somebody, because then, like, once you have that, then the world's your oyster a bit with a lot of these personal relationships that I've developed just based on that. So, I mean, it's a community, like you said, it's a way for people to interact, to rally around something, but then come together for a bigger cause. And I think that's what this aims to do, right? A bigger cause for hockey, for the world, to try to bring hockey to the people, to people who might not be able to afford it, and then just grow with it, right? I think that's where we see this going, and where I think, to your point, where, like, what is it? Like, what does it bring you? And it's more of a community and a rallying point, I think.
I'm gonna jump in just real quick in that I would have never met these two fellas hadn't been for the NFT community. And it's really about that. It's about community and friendships. I mean, we're doing Friendsgiving on Monday at Quirky's place, and that would have never happened had I not been involved in an NFT project. It's kind of like loving a brand. It's like loving Nike, and you're part of that community. You see someone else that maybe Nike's a bad example, but I do think it's really about the community.
On-air production meeting, Todd, I know Joe is going to be hopping in on the invite there pretty soon. So just a heads up, he said 60 seconds, about 60 seconds ago.
There he is.
Where is he?
Right there.
Speaking of hockey, let's go.
Where is he? It's acting like he was coming through the door. You can't make it up. So this is a topic that I'm really excited to talk to Joe. Joe, how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
Pete, I'm doing well. My apologies for running a little behind here.
No worries, and we're gonna keep you for 15 minutes because I know you've got big stuff going on a little bit later on here in the afternoon. So, real quick to those that are listening, we introduced you a little bit earlier, but you are Joe Delich, the executive director of Minnesota Hockey. You have an extensive coaching background at the collegiate level, from Colorado College to Air Force, and a playing pedigree that really began on the range, if I stand corrected. But you are near and dear to the game of hockey, and I think a great person to delve into this topic. Is there anything else I missed on your resume that's just off the top of the head?
Just all around good guy. But other than that,
well, no, that's a given.
Goes without saying. Huh?
Yeah. You give me more credit than I probably have earned, but no. Just being from the range alone, I guess, and back in the day, that was enough pedigree, right?
The credibility is legit. The pedigree is great. And I was just talking about this the other day, or actually today, with one of the range coaches who was talking about coaching and the pressure. He was not a head coach, and he was saying why it was so nice to be an assistant coach, because it's almost like, at the high school level where you're coaching at a pro level to a degree, Joe.
No doubt. I mean, you're now these days you're dealing with kids. They've got advisors, and especially if you're at one of the high octane high school programs, it's really exacerbated. So, I do know. I know a program that I'm real familiar with here in the metro where. You kind of looked at, I know there was a longtime assistant, and you kind of looked at him as the heir apparent, and then you kind of find out that, they love the assistant role, but that head coaching role and all the various things that you now kind of have to deal with that are outside the game of hockey, purely the X's and O's and dealing with the kids. Some folks aren't as cut out for that. It's not as interesting to them. So it's certainly a different dynamic, and I'm sure the topic, that at least the one that you shared to me, I don't know, it was about midnight last night, Pete.
Maybe.
I'm sure that topic is not going to, really, it's not going to necessarily make things any easier for a lot of these high school coaches going forward.
No, it's not. Let's get into that. So what we really wanted to bring you on is obviously you are here to manage, protect the sanctity of community-based hockey. I think we all know that really matters to what we have going on. And with the announcement from major junior players now being eligible to play collegiately next year, that sent a little tailspin into those that were kind of cocooned and feeling safe. And you've done a lot of recruiting, right? You've recruited against kids, hey, if you go there, you can't play here, type of thing. So we've heard like a lot of thoughts of, boy, this will hurt this will hurt that. Do you think it'll hurt anything or help?
I think it, you know what? I think every change depends what bucket you're sitting in. This is going to help some people, and it's going to hurt others. I still have a good network out coaching in the game at the college level now, and I had one longtime coach, basically say to me, college hockey is just going to get better in terms of the level of play, and he followed that with and it's already really good. And then secondly, I mean, they made the comment that there may be fewer slots for US born kids until such time that, we start to see a more of a proliferation of Division I programs and schools deciding to come on board with hockey. Your ASUs and we'd love to get into what is now historically referred to as a Pac-12 and
historically
and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting enough, I was having dinner the other night. An old hockey name, Gary Gambucci, an old St. Paul Fighting Saint, but back in the day, we were talking about some of the old greats that came out of Eveleth and Mayasich and Matcheffs, and we were talking, and they talked about several of the guys from the range going out to play Division I hockey at Cal Berkeley and UCLA, which I had no idea they had Division I hockey. I mean, we're going back to the 50s, but I guess there is precedence, and certainly from a standpoint of, and you look at major junior hockey, and I think there's roughly 2,000 kids that play across, the Western League, Ontario and Quebec. Not all 2,000 of those kids are just going to get dumped into the pool and be Division I candidates, either because of their level of play or academically, if they even meet the standard, or C, even if they have the interest. But we're certainly going to see a much larger fraction of that group now that becomes all of a sudden interested in college hockey. I saw 2 days ago, I think it was, the Badgers took a goaltender out of Wenatchee in the Western League.
Was that among the first that you're aware of?
ASU. So ASU is to my knowledge, ASU is the first university that had committed to a player. I'm assuming it was a verbal commit for next season, and that was before there was this ruling, and it may have been in anticipation that this ruling was going to happen.
Insider hockey trading right there.
What's that?
Insider hockey trading right there. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You heard it here
no
first.
Doubt.
I think it's interesting.
No
though,
doubt.
I want to jump in and point out real quick, even if it's not those couple of thousand players that are, automatically, jumping into the, to the college ranks, there's a point to be made, even if it's a couple hundred players, maybe 200-300 players, somewhere around there, even if it's 100, that shakes up what the current talent pool is. And, I'm curious what kind of take we may have here again. I know that last week on the podcast, we were talking a little bit about NIL deals that are going on. And I know a lot of that obviously happens in the college football world. But what do you think? What kind of impact may this have when it comes to college hockey too? Does that become more of a relevant conversation where there's maybe different type of funding from from outside people that are connected to universities? What type of situation do you think that's going to impact college hockey here in the next couple of years?
I think nil is its own animal, and I don't know. At least I haven't been able to connect the dots yet between the ruling on the Western League or the major junior kids, and will we see any impacts on nil? I think nil is it's its own animal, and universities are dealing with it. It is very much the rich get richer type of scenario. I mean, look at what happened. Was it yesterday or the day before with the LSU quarterback now going to Michigan? That I don't know if I heard correctly. Someone mentioned to me maybe 11 million in nil money.
Oh my goodness.
So I think on the college hockey level, I mean, we've been a little bit insulated from basketball and football at the Division I level. Not insulated enough that it doesn't have an impact, but certainly not at the numbers that you're seeing, with these the big two, and obviously the amount of revenue that those the football and basketball programs generate at SEC and Big Ten schools, etc. So I guess nil could be its. I guess what I'm saying is nil is very much its own topic. I think it's not going to necessarily change based on a kid now coming out of Seattle or Spokane or somewhere versus coming out of the USHL in Lincoln or Des Moines. So but it is just another variable that college coaches and programs now have to deal with.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's its own beast, but you still have to consider that amongst all the other variables that are constantly changing in the sports world. But go ahead, Waggs.
Joe, what is your take as far as our beloved Minnesota high school model? And obviously it was a lot tougher for these Minnesota kids to bounce into the W or the O if they're somehow able to get over there. What does it do to that? Do you think not much, or does it impact this a little bit?
First off, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I was a little jealous when I just saw the 4 nicknames pop up there. I almost feel like next time I visit with you, Pete, I'm going to need a nickname.
we can work on that.
We call you Deli, or what do you call you?
But I would like to vet it first, okay?
He's picking his own nickname. Okay, go ahead.
Coming from the range, you didn't get out of the range without at least one nickname, and usually one that you didn't want anyone outside of the range. You had.
Keep it in house, right?
Yeah, no. You know what? It is going to have an impact on Minnesota hockey. It can't not have an impact. To what degree? I think is what none of us have a real crystal ball with. Where I think what I think it does is. If I look back even to my playing days and coaching days, you did have those kids in Minnesota that were identified, whether it was central scouting or, somebody's identifying this kid going, NHL prospect. And you did have major juniors down here trying to recruit, those 16-year-olds out of Minnesota to come play. And, we've talked about this, I think, in the past, Pete, College Hockey Inc., which was set up in around 2012, 2013, was very much to get in and combat the message that was being delivered by a lot of these major junior scouts that were down talking to families and giving them one side of the story. And a big part of what College Hockey Inc. came in to do was to be able to tell the story on behalf of college hockey that, this path and this route is absolutely going to allow your son or daughter to, continue their playing career. And over the years, we've seen, year after year after year, where more and more kids are coming out of college hockey and going to the NHL. Whereas, if you look back 25 years ago, the number of kids playing in the NHL coming out of college hockey relative to, say, major junior, the numbers were far greater split than they are today.
Right.
So I think for us, Minnesota hockey, we're charged with Bantams and under, and then we also have a few other things. We've got our junior gold, which is a high school level program. Those kids that aren't playing high school hockey. We've got some adult hockey, rec hockey, and whatnot. But our core, if you will, is that Bantam age kid on down, and then kids migrate into high school, where Minnesota State High School League gets them for 3-4 years. But Minnesota hockey, when you talk about it as the state of hockey, if you will, everything within our boundaries, we're kind of this big ecosystem. And in the ecosystem, our part of the reason our association hockey stays strong and because it's the feeder program right into those high schools. And the high schools staying healthy and strong help, everything below that. I think what we do know with this is I would venture to guess that, we may start to see a proliferation of major junior scouts now that want to start coming in, much like some of the junior scouts do today, whether it's at the NAL or USHL level, where they're looking at high school age kids, and now starting to talk about, hey, what do you think about coming out here to Seattle or wherever. And so I think we're going to start seeing more and more kids get recruited out of Minnesota. How many of those kids are going to choose, to go that route now because they don't close the path to college anymore? And I know that was a huge deal. And so lifting off that guardrail, I think what we're going to find is we're going to probably have to become more actively involved in recruiting our own kids, and selling the virtues of, staying at home, both from a hockey development standpoint, but also, personally, your development and your maturity levels and just, we don't ever talk enough about, we just assume because a kid's a good hockey player that you can stick him in a locker room at 16 with 19-year-olds. And from a maturity standpoint, he's ready to deal with everything that comes with that.
Yeah. I think we can all agree. I think we can all agree too. There's obviously the element of things look good on paper and in theory. And then like you said, when you actually get kids in the locker room and you have that age gap, even if, again, the skill level is there and they can compete on the ice and they have the tenacity to go out there and compete. There's that, that culture, there's that locker room talk too, where, we were talking about even with the NFL earlier as well, when it comes to the dynamic of quarterbacks and coaches, where does that pressure fall on and who are the scapegoat sometimes. But I think there's a point to say of what you're alluding to here with, again, some of these young kids getting in these locker rooms and it just may not be, the time or place. And there's something to say though too that you brought up, even with, maybe a lot of kids wanting to stay home, to stay local too. I think there's going to be an interesting dynamic or shift even with continuing to recruit in state and, getting more kids, if again, this is where the trajectory is going, to get them to be down at the U. And I know that's always been a big emphasis for the Gophers, but I'm really curious to see in the next couple of years, how this may shift or, continue to improve for the better. Because again, I think at the end of the day, you want to keep that talent and culture as close to home as you can.
Joe, final question for you, and we appreciate your time because we know we got to roll off to your next meeting. When you look at the whole recruiting process as a recruiter, what were just from a parental knowledge, what would you tell parents to do in the recruiting process, get engaged, stay away. What do you guys as recruiters at the collegiate level prefer?
Well, you know, and I happen to recruit at a pretty distinct place, and it was very different recruiting at the Air Force Academy versus, say, a Colorado college. You know, at the Air Force Academy, we absolutely 100% wanted parents integrally involved in that process. As a parent myself, of you know, young athletes who, you know, have gone through that process as well. I think it's completely invaluable that parents are integrated, and typically those that don't want to see parents integrated into it, you know, probably have some. They're not wanting somebody with maybe a little more wisdom, years of experience, can look at the bigger picture. They don't necessarily want that. That's not in all cases, but you know, these are life-changing decisions. I mean, you know, we always talk about or look at the success stories. You know, kid goes off to play in the USHL or the NAL or you know, whatever. We don't hear as much about the dozen train wrecks, you know, that happened. You know, kids not being able to deal with that environment or whatnot. So from a recruiting standpoint, in terms of involving the parents and parents being involved, I think it's absolutely imperative. I mean, you know, young 16-year-old minds aren't necessarily fully developed. And I think having strong guide. Now, you know, that being said, you know, we've all been around some parents as well that, you know, might need reality checks and might not. So, but by and large, these are big decisions. And I think having that, being able to garner that frame of reference that a parent can bring to the table, a parent who hopefully understands their kid, and what type of environment their kid might thrive in, or what might not be well suited for them. So from a recruiter, I think I always wanted that, because I felt like if we did get a positive, we got a kid to commit, and everybody in that family, you know, that mattered, was a sort of a part of that decision. You know, people will support what they create, and you usually found that those were probably the kids that ended up having a positive experience, a successful experience, and stayed with the program, and didn't get there and find out, you know, it was really 180 degrees from what they thought it was or should be.
Great stuff. Joe, we appreciate your time. You and I have done this a few other times. I got a ton of other questions on other topics that we'll bring you back on another one later.
And we'll get you a nickname. We'll vet that too for you.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you get a little bit to look over it.
That's great. Well,
We'll
you
get you
know,
the
bonus plan, Pete. My 1 o'clock's not here. If you got one is burning, I got time to take it. If not, we'll save it for another day.
We'll save it for another day, because
we got to leave people wanting more.
Well, yeah, really got to leave them a little hungry. What this will do is just open up a whole different scenario. We just got the last minute to play in the period burned into our ears, so we're going to cut you loose. Good that you get your time back at 1. You don't have to deal with it and worry about it. Wonderful stuff.
Awesome.
I mean, so what do you say?
Great to visit with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate your
Have a
time.
great weekend. That was
You
Joe
bet.
Delich. Of course, he is the executive director of Minnesota Hockey, former college coach, knows everything you need to know about the industry. He's very deep and rich in thought and content. Doc, you'll have fun cutting that up. We'll come back. We're going to wrap it up, talk about a couple of quick topics, and we'll say so long.
Welcome back to the DigiFan Podcast, and that was Joe Delich. What an interview, guys.
he makes it so easy.
Doesn't he?
I mean,
Yeah.
he's a pro. But he's really well versed, and he knows exactly where his head is at with everything. And I mean, there's just so many different layers to this. And I think in the end, it's all about money. And if schools are able to add Division I college hockey, or even Division III, because there's going to be some runoff here, I think that just opens up opportunity for people and players. The group that I get a little bit concerned about in all of this are those that are maybe not in the massive markets like Minnesota, Massachusetts, or Michigan. However, the Massachusetts, Michigan guys are playing a lot of Tier 1 where they're getting moved on to NA and USHL teams. What does it do to that group? Do they have the infrastructure to be able to deal with an onslaught of the additional talent coming in from there? Guys, a couple things. Last night, the Minnesota Wild defeated the Edmonton Oilers 5-3 in Edmonton. And the 297s were out there. And I will argue they're totally different players. I find the Minnesota 97 is a lot easier to watch on the ice. Just smooth skater, good in the offensive zone, incredible with turnovers, really good with his angles, good in the neutral zone, good in the defensive zone, makes others big time better around him. I'm not saying the Edmonton 97 doesn't do that. But I think it's completely overlooked on Kaprizov.
There's one element when it comes to the talent on the ice, and I know that there's been that comparison we've been talking about a little bit on the side here between Kaprizov and McDavid, and just to see again the culture, the charisma that Kaprizov has. As you said, he's always smiling. There's how many funny clips out there of him just being himself, and he still is a kid in a lot of ways, but he still has that youthful spirit that I think anybody in Minnesota loves and appreciates.
Well, he looks like he's 12, and I mean, but he's perpetually smiling, and I think that rubs off on not only your locker room and your teammates because it's a can-do attitude. And he's a fierce competitor, and they don't make the playoffs last year, and he was pissed. Other guys would just say, "Yeah, I got my check, let's move on." But no. I mean, this guy's driven a different way. McDavid is an interesting specimen. Very big, very strong, flies. He's a little more upright as a player, a little less down with his hips, like Kaprizov is. But I think it's their skating they'll probably get from point A to point B the same pace. One guy has a lot of moving parts. The other guy doesn't. That's what I was referring to at the onset of that comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it actually reminded me of an interview. So I full disclosure, grew up in St. Louis, so I'm a Blues fan. And didn't grow up with the Wild or the Stars.
Were you there when they won the Cup?
I wasn't there, but I was waiting a long time for that. And it was amazing to see. I was living in here at the time. But I actually listened to it.
Did you get a tear?
I did. I cried a little bit. I had my 3-year-old at the time, 4-year-old at the time. He was watching with me in the basement as this went down.
At least you could tear. We couldn't here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I know. Tears for different reasons. But I was watching an interview. Actually, it was Dylan Holloway, right? He was with the Oilers last year, I believe.
Yep.
And they were asking him, it was a Blues interview, where they were asking him about what it was like to play with McDavid, and like kind of what you're just saying here to that point. He's a very polished statesman when it comes to hockey. Like his interviews are like kind of so on point. He's a pretty like mellow guy, right? He does his media. He's like trained in on how to do the media, but you can tell that's not necessarily him. Like it's kind of a false front. Whereas Kaprizov is like, he's who he is. And I think that's the kind of like intangible locker room spirit that you kind of get from somebody that I think is rubbing off on the Wild versus on the Oilers, right?
Well,
like,
I think
there's someone who's exciting.
Yeah, Quirk, what you're getting at is you're leading to your 1,000-point getter as quick as he did, 4th fastest in league history. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that mantle. And whether you want it or not, you have to do things and you have to deal with the media. And when you're in a Canadian market, you're really screwed. Let's be honest. This Minnesota market is chump change compared to Calgary, compared to Montreal, compared to Ottawa, Toronto. Not even close. Edmonton.
2 different worlds.
Yeah, like so you've got a free pass here. Like we think we're like the media here gives them no shit. Like I think the Wild
apples
have a
to
free
oranges.
Yeah. Russo does a nice job of calling it like it is, to his credit. But by and large, the Wild have been given a free pass for 24 years. How do you have a team in a league that long with the amount of money you've spent with that little success? That's a long time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Interesting point. I know
just saying.
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot to tackle and uncover here today. Now that we've been able to hit the gambit, been able to touch on a little bit of all types of sports here today. I'm not sure. Do you have any final kind of?
I have a question.
Final points here before we wrap up today.
Here before we wrap up, Peanut. I want your honest impression on the NBA in-season tournament. A fan or not a fan?
Fan, 100%. I was saying last week on the podcast, the ability for rookies and role players to get that extra check, again, for whoever does take the title. I know that's a huge boost for player morale and even just for themselves, their family, their loved ones too. So I think it's a huge win. It provides a little bit of a spark. And I know that we saw a different level of competitiveness last year. It felt like a playoff atmosphere.
Yeah,
and
mini playoff atmosphere,
yeah,
right?
Mini playoff atmosphere. And when you have the right people, the KDs, the LeBrons, the Beals, it is definitely something that has a ripple effect. It's contagious to other players too.
Keeping it close to home here, final question, comment of the day. We'll get into the ownership saga next week. We're going to lead with that, I promise.
It waits another week. We talked about it last
the
week.
tease is just like
The tease
becoming,
is
it's
here.
a month-long tease. No, but the Wolves are going to head into Boston. They're probably coming home 8-8. Yeah, or coming out of the game 8-8. We're hearing about gelling and this and that and that and this. You're at 16 games. And I know you're going to be creeping up to 20 here pretty darn quick, and you're looking like a 500 team who's going to be middling in that 5, 6, 7, 8 range, 9, 10, at least right now. And I know people say in the NBA, you don't pay attention until Christmas. You're not looking like that's going to change. Show me where the switch is. Am I wrong?
You bring up a valuable point. I know a lot of people say it's a long season. There's a lot of games to be played yet, and with the discussions of load management, I know that's something that it hasn't necessarily just been in the NBA itself, but there's obviously been a bigger point of discussion when it comes to the NBA and load management. And when, players aren't willing to play back-to-back games, or you have these insane travel schedules, which I think we had touched on that last week even. Mm-hmm. You have these late games, team gets in super early, and then they're expected to turn around and go out there and perform on the court on, the flip of a switch notice. So for me, it goes back to, again, the culture, talking about that in just about any sport. It depends on those key leaders, the coach, in making sure that, again, the right type of mentality is continued to be pushed forward regardless of, the time of the season and what's going on. But there's definitely some things to be concerned about right
16
now.
games in, I don't think Dante
last minute of play
is in the
period.
middle of a cold streak. I think it's a trend, and I'm concerned.
Yeah, well,
I don't see that changing, man.
We'll have to see.
Can we move? Can you trade a guy you just traded for? Seriously, though. Am I wrong? I don't know the game well enough, but sure. I know when you miss shots and everything you launch is from tray land, you're going logo threes. Well, did you ever see the movie Something About Mary?
I've seen
the basketball scene. That's who he reminds me of.
Yeah, You asked, just kind of bouncing back quickly. I'm not I don't follow the NBA as closely as you guys do, but I did see a commercial for the Cup.
I'm about right there and there with you.
Yeah, so okay. I did see a commercial for the Cup, right? The tournament they have coming up, and that's from maybe a sports economics perspective. It actually intrigued me, right? As a more casual NBA fan, I'm like, oh, hey, that's right, that's coming up. That's something that I should tune into and pay attention to. And I also wonder too, from a team's perspective, if that can provide a spark maybe for some of these teams that maybe haven't reached their level of play, right? Let's get into some more competitive nature games and let's hit the switcher, because once you get on a winning streak and playing for something a little more, maybe that's something that brings the team up.
Yeah,
we're gonna close with this.
Yeah, we're close with, and just one little quick point.
I got a shot I'm gonna take, and I want your take.
All right, I'll keep it 30 seconds here. Seeing where the trajectory of seasons have been over the last 5 to 10 years, I think we can collectively agree that there's something unique about that second half, that second stretch of the season, especially when it comes to baseball, these other major American sports. And it's all about getting hot at the right time in sports. I think we can agree. You could have a great first half. You could start out of the gate strong. But again, seeing how teams flop in the second half, it's all about really dialing it up as a team and getting things right in the locker room culture-wise if things are still kind of shaky. that, again, I think it's more about the second half than the first half.
I know enough about the game to know that defense takes effort, and that's a choice. And it looks like this club so far through 16 games has chosen to be maybe hit and miss at best defensively. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with that as a viewer. That's just not what do I care? It's just what I think. And then final question.
Yep.
Do you think the NBA is flipped out that they might need to flex out of the Wolves-Mavs game on Christmas Day? What a dump that's going to be with those two teams right now. Right?
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean,
okay, we'll check back in 3 weeks.
We'll check back in a couple of weeks. I think anybody can show up at the right time, the right place, and put on a good show for all fans across the world.
Yeah, what are the odds on a flex out on that right now?
Right now, I'd say right on happening.
Love it. Love it. Now we got a couple of points that we'll probably tease out over the next couple of weeks, but it's been a good time hanging out with you guys today.
That's awesome. Guys, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Take us home, buddy.
Hey guys, I just wanted to throw it out there that we do have a giveaway for the MetaBeauts jersey and a free NFT. So if you want to hit our Twitter, our X, how are we going to do this, boys?
I'm looking at some of the comments right now. I have not been in the live chat because I know that there's going to be some type of sound that emits from my phone. But I am seeing a handful of friends down in the comments here. I do see one of my buddies, Deviator, who commented in the chat. That might be a great individual to give out a giveaway, special giveaway that we have for today. So that would be my pick, my candidate for the giveaway. I know he's been listening in, and he dropped some comments on the post for the live stream that's out there on X or Twitter.
Awesome stuff.
There we go.
Love it. Congrats, Deviator.
We got it. Congrats. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for the DigiFan podcast this week. Man, I thought it was pretty good, man. We're improving every
week too.
Every week.
Dial it in.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think
next time we really need to call in. We need to call in from the fans.
We'll get people engaged.
We'll go an extra 15 or so.
Love it.
All right. From the Metasports League studios and the DigiFan Podcast, this is DocG, along with Waggs, Quirky, Juju, and Peanut. See you next Friday at noon.